what we've got is a lot of stuff signed. I mean, if you look, I think you can see it, right? Shows up enough? Yeah. Status. Okay, so the right column highlighted in green there just shows you that signed by the governor, signed by the governor, signed by the governor. I didn't check this morning if SB 6 got signed, but I would imagine it has not. Okay, so it is still past the Senate. Okay. So the top of the list here are all of the anti-protest bills. So there are only a couple left that I think even fall in that kind of category. Another one that would prohibit police officers. I imagine that one will die now because that's kind of already in 1643. But 1643, 1674, 2095, and 403 are kind of all big anti-protest bills that are all signed. So they are law of the land. The most interesting one of those, and the one that, if I'm speaking directly to our audience, you need to be the most concerned about, is Senate Bill 403, which adds political subdivisions to a law against disrupting state meetings. So now that means any meeting you can't disrupt: city council, school board, retirement board of trustees, whatever meeting, you can't go in and shut it down. That had an emergency on it, so it is live right now. So that will potentially affect a lot of activism potentially and what people do around that. So I think it is worth pointing out that right away there is now a mechanism for the state to, I mean, I would guess it was Calvi. I mean, it was written very explicitly against people who disrupt meetings. And, it's like this thing of like where we care about civility over justice, right? Like it's not about what you're protesting about, because obviously if you've been to any local political meeting, that stuff's boring. Like it's stuff that's decided months in advance. Like people are hashing it out in countless random meetings. By the time it goes to a vote of whatever body council it is, this is some like well chewed gum at that point, in like 99% of cases. So in the 1% of cases that it's not, it's because there is some deep seated cultural, political disagreement. And since everything in conservative world is some bad faith, misdirection, misinformation campaign, like virtually all of these conflicts resolve down to one group that has like valid, justified, thoughtful, real concerns that maybe they're not saying in a way that you like. Maybe they're using the F word. Maybe they're shouting a little bit. But their underlying complaint is like well researched. Everyone knows it's a problem. And then the other side, which is just like total bad faith, bad actors, and psychotic. And so, they now get to say that if you yell or shout or disrupt the meeting in a way that they don't like, they can call the police to have you hauled off, I guess. How can this be constitutional? My guess is it will not be. There are groups talking, possibly right now, about what they're going to do about that legally. My challenge with litigation is it is a very slow process. Chances are somebody will have to be harmed by this law. Then they'll have to file a lawsuit or a court case or suffer some harm, like get hauled off to jail, and then there will be a series of court cases that litigate this. It could be years. I've just personally been burned by this. The panhandling ordinance in Oklahoma City, like I personally was at the very start of that in ways that I am deeply frustrated by now, but like we wanted the city to address panhandling, but in like a help people, get them resources, find better ways for them to get what they needed. But instead, the city passed a punitive ordinance criminalizing it, which did nothing except make these people's lives even harder and worse. And it took literally 6 years. I mean, I have the receipts. Like, it took 6 years to unravel that and put the city back to basically square one. So I see laws like this going down in a similar fashion, right? Is, somebody's going to show up to a meeting. They're going to scream and yell, go over their time. The cops are going to haul them off. And then they're going to get a lawsuit to say that my First Amendment rights have been violated. I'm an aggrieved party. And that will start a series of court cases that will probably end up at the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court will probably be like, yeah, Joe Bob, whatever, can show up and shout at a city council meeting once every, 8 months. And he can go over his 3 minutes of time and he can say mean things to you because we live in a country that enshrines the First Amendment and you are allowed to do that. So, but the problem is it's going to have a chilling effect. It's going to take years. It's going to cost a bunch of money. And the ultimate thing for like people like myself, and I think people that watch this program, is in the meantime, we will not fix a single fucking problem that we actually have. So while we're talking about, can somebody yell at somebody in a fucking city council meeting or do a banner drop at the state capitol or whatever it is, we're not going to address any of the actual issues that we have in the world. So, that's the problem with these laws, is it's just grievance. It's just furthering this like insane narrative that we've got going about who gets listened to, how they get listened to. Really, it's just an argument about reality. It's like, whose reality do we live in? Do we live in this like cancel culture, Christians are actually the ones discriminated against world that doesn't exist? Or do we live in the one where we're the largest incarcerator of humans on the planet, where we have massive and intractable wealth and income inequality, where we don't have health care that the entire rest of the world's figured out how to get, that we have, a housing crisis in virtually every metropolitan area in the entire country? Like, are we going to address any of those problems? Or are we going to talk about like, whether somebody yells at you, 3 or 4 times a year at a public meeting?